Hey everybody, and welcome to Robodojo with Machine Cinema. This is our very special session. If anybody's been to our previous ones, we like to treat this as like beyond conversations like we have in Gen Talks. You know, this is where we are doing a working session for AI creative professionals. It is practitioner-led, hands-on, and built for the people doing the work. Please do check out our YouTube channel where we've done a few of these before. We're going to be doing a lot more of these in the coming months. Today we are here with my friend. I'm very lucky to have done some fun traveling with Tommy, aka Artem Petrov, founder and CEO of CopySight.AI. Artem is building the first IP risk scoring and copyright infrastructure for AI-generated content. And he's not just coming at this from theory, he's shipping at scale. He's a former director at Meta Reality Labs and Snap, two-time founder and one-time exiter, and now working with studios, agencies, and platforms navigating AI in production. All of which is to say, neither of us are attorneys, guys. So nobody should be quoting this podcast along the way to protecting themselves in court. But I say that jokingly because, you know, we've done Robodojos before where they're very creative first. We're learning how to use tools like Weavy, or, you know, Fred Graver taught us how to, you know, focus on AI writing. We had a really cool session. This is sort of moving into other parts of what people in our community, and we think people broader, are focusing on, is how do we actually exploit the work we're doing? How do we actually get to do what creators do in the modern creative industry, is actually, you know, get to sort of build careers. And look, it's almost the wonkiest side of this all, but I think anybody who's actually been down the road, this is probably the most important, is how do we actually understand copyright? So obviously CopySight.AI is a product, and we're going to learn a little bit about how that tool is actually trying to create solutions. But, you know, think of us, we're in the creator crowd here. Again, don't quote us as attorneys, but this is how we go into that Explorers Club mentality of how do we actually approach these puzzles. There's a lot to learn from what people are out there doing as creators. There's also a lot to understand about the landscape, and like we're going to spend a little bit of doing a little one-on-one today too. But welcome, really excited to have you here. Good to share some space with you in general. But Tommy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and maybe how did you come to this problem that we're going to try to find solutions for today?
So it's interesting that you mentioned how creators are not attorneys, and that's like a big problem because most of the cases in courts right now are lost by creators. Just because of that, because they don't know how to position their work, and specifically for AI as well. So that we see a lot of big corps are winning the cases just because how the legislation was working for creators, and they didn't know how to position it. So my background, I'm a professionally trained artist, and I was doing art since I was 15. I was participating in different exhibitions and doing arts and published art and sell my art for some time until I realized that I also love business and money and all those things. And I shifted from creative, like a purely creative career, to advertising, and went to this like on the dark side. And that was initially I thought that this problem is figured out. So for 100 years, we know how to tackle the copyright, but something changed a couple of years ago. It was the invention of transformers. And basically that we are basically living through the largest surge of systematic IP infringements of like in human history, and it's all led by generative AI. So like if you're creating anything, you have seen that happening. It randomly spits out like all kind of infringements, and there's no control in that. If you know those IPs, it's great, but you don't know all the IPs in the world, and that's not their goal, and there will be more. And now we need to think about infrastructure that covers that from all multiple levels and multiple angles. So it was my passion because I was doing this work when I was an artist, and I was doing when I was a creative director, and then I was a technical creative director for all those companies, just to see how original things we are producing and how we doing this smartly, because it's all right to take things. It's all about the art. It's all right to kind of be inspired, but where this line lies, and where for AI and specifically, because with people is different. So before, you have to work on stealing things. Like you have to actually find it, recreate it, like make a little drawing or recreate the music, and you have to have skills. Now it's so cheap and prompt based, so it will we like how Doug Shapiro, our strategic advisor, says that we are in an infinite era of he was here. Yeah,
we love Doug Shapiro.
Yeah, he was in this podcast as well. So basically, he said that it will be an infinite era of content, and something will change on their regulation and on their kind of compliance side of the things. And we're already seeing it implementing, and it's beautiful how like it's this entity is self-organizing. And I will give today like a lot of practical advices that are not concerned with my product, but like just that's what every creator have to do right now.
And maybe it's jumping right into your presentation, but like there's a bit of like 101. Again, I think most people at this point who are trying to sort of sell stuff, make stuff, work with companies that are asking them to deliver stuff, there's this commentary about copyright in general. But I wonder, just like, let's start like almost whatever below 101 is, like 100 in our college course here. What is copyright, and why is it important?
I think that we now talking about like how we protect intellectual property. And like it's the basic thing is, I think will kind of like, if I generated this in 4 seconds, like, is it mine? Like if I created, I prompted it, or I did a sketch and like I did like all those things, like how I attribute. So before that, if I created something, I made a doodle in the notebook, this is mine, my doodle, no question asked. Then if I work for you and I created this doodle, it's your doodle. And partially mine.
Will you assign me the rights?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, because I work for you, so it's everything I produce is kind of technically yours. There's some really interesting things in France, for instance. The author still have control. So if you bought a sculpture and they're like, and you fully now owning the piece of art, and then you paint it in yellow, and it's not something that initial author kind of wanted, he can actually claim that thing back, and. It's different countries, but overall, this is the principle.
Which is to say that I think when we think about the Hollywood of it all, or just the media, like that we've now inherited like 100 years of iteration. Like people have been working on this, and there's all kinds of lawyers that spend a lot of JD money to become lawyers.
It's the business model.
That's right.
IP is a business model, and now it will become even more essential because the production cost goes down, and like there's easier to produce. The value is in IP. Is people love good IPs and love marks and brands and like characters and stories. So the stories is essential, but like how you protect and when everyone can do the stories and how we trace it. And the tracing is a big part of it, like how you attribute people. So I love this example because we were talking about internally, was like we heard that like Disney just fired like 1,000 people. And all the animators, illustrators that worked on Marvel and created those beautiful things that we all love. And in the same time, it's a horrible story, but it should not be that. It could be different. And what CopySight is doing right now, and it's just, imagine that they left, but they still get paid. For every time that Disney produces a new Marvel movie, they are, as a contributors to the style, contributors to this universe, they will get paid fractions based on the scoring we invented. And that is kind of like an ultimate goal, to create a safe environment for creators for future when generative AI, maybe 30 or 40% people will be jumping on the AI pipelines. It would be great. But what happened to others who are creating things manually, hand drawings and stuff? We need this data. Every generative model, every VLM requires the new data, and we already train on everything created. So what we do, we need to incentivize new creations. And people like you, like everybody who listens right now, will have to produce more data because synthetic data is now good for training. And now it will be solved in different ways, but it's an interesting thing where we kind of like getting there.
Well, I want you to jump into your presentation because this might take us straight in, because there's also these nuances of, there's the copyright issues that are playing out in lots of courtrooms in terms of the underlying data, who it belongs to. And I think on some level, we're all just waiting for those very expensive attorneys to play out their settlements, and then we'll have precedent. I think that's a short answer. But then there's this other side of copyright, which is creators, like many people in our community, that want to have it. And it's not disconnected from those debates. So walk us through how you understand the space.
I just wanted to put like cases that probably many of you are familiar, but I hope that not, because then otherwise I just spend your time. But then very quickly, like a British wild photographer, David Slater, disputes, and like very like basically the dispute was about that the animal, in this case it was a monkey in the park, took his camera, made a selfie, and he won like a really big award for that. And that was of 10,000 euro or something. And the animal protectors and from the PETA were basically claiming like it's not yours. It's like the monkey did this photo, so you have to give back those money to like the Wild Horse Resorts or any like donated back basically. And he's like, no, I like set it up, all of it. So I put this camera and things like that. So it was a big dispute. But in the end of this dispute is like the learning that we have is that IP protects people and protects human work.
Not monkeys.
No monkeys. And right after that, right after the monkey, AI comes. So now it doesn't protect the work of generating AI. Another really cool case, I think, is Elise Goldsmith versus Andy Warhol Foundation. It's a very subtle thing about what's it's training on, and how much you can take to train on. Also, no AI involved. It was like the outline that Andy Warhol used from the photography of Elise Goldsmith. So he just like created the outline based on this photography to inspire his art. And once he asked permission, it was all right. Then the second time he didn't ask permission, and it was like the whole lawsuit busted out from that. And it's an interesting thing. So it's in the end of the day, the court ruled in the Goldsmith favor, meaning that you have to pay attention. But I'm not sure that in our reality right now, it will be the same. So it's the question about, is this fair use or not? Like when you're training.
Let's talk about fair use. What is fair use?
So fair use in this case is like, guys, we're doing it for building the product, and it's not for kind of like commercial use of this IPs, and it's just to enhancing the product. And in the end of the day, the commercial use will be the output, not the input. So they're trying to make all the inputs, like data sets and training sets, and like a clear training set to be a fair use, and claim that this is a fair use. On the other side, people whose data is used, they say no, it's not. And we have much largest lawsuits right now. So we have the biggest lawsuit in human history. Anthropic just settled for $1.5 billion but for using tons of articles and books to train the model. And they're playing a good game just to trying to, like, that's a political decision basically when you have a valuation of like more than $80 billion.
I can't believe there's any politics involved, but go ahead.
Yeah. In this case, it's just, hey guys, we're good guys. Yes, we use it, but we're paying for it. And in this case, I think there's multiple different ways to go, but in looking at current situation, political situation, and current office, in current lobbies, pushing for less regulation and faster movement, I think that the fair use kind of will be, at least for some time, a thing.
So for anybody that's ever worked in like documentaries, like fair use is a very popular thing for you and your attorney to work on, like, which basically documentaries which are rarely funded well and they rarely have big budgets, but they're also earnestly saying, I'm literally talking about this thing. And I think there might even be a legal specificity, like 7 seconds or something like that, that literally says like, hey, if you are talking about George Michael and Freedom 90, all good, you know, and it's not, frankly, it's not compromising the George Michael estate and their ability to exploit all the hard-earned copyright IP that George Michael created. So that's sort of this space that just intuitively that this world of people making stuff and referencing stuff has lived in. And again, we're on the side of the copyright issue that is the underlying training data. Yeah. So when we talk about Anthropic getting sued and the many other lawsuits, this is them really trying to make the case that even the technology itself is fair. And we're about to find out if that's true. And we're going to find out what should they be doing to license more of it. Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, the actual Anthropic settlement, I think they won on the fair use point. Yeah. It's just that they lost on the fact that they stole the physical data. Can you explain that?
So the thing is with Anthropic, I think they could have fight more, but I think there was a political decision to go with a settlement to create a precedent of the largest settlement in human history in IP law. And because their whole kind of philosophy and mission to be fair, and they're kind of proving it right now. Like it happened like a year ago. Now it's this one. They're still kind of playing the same card of good actors, and this is like kind of respect this thing. And so in fair use, I think that they created a precedent that even though they could have proved probably that they are like, it could be a different settlement, but they are okay with a big settlement to play the card of a good actor. And so I do think that's a political, more political rather than like a legal decision.
But it's also like, and that's why I want to pivot to the notion of how do you actually copyright your work, because you mentioned before, there's Europe, there's multiple international territories. Frankly, there's existing precedent that copyright has different definitions. So that is the big concept that's underlying. At the end of the day, what we're still trying to define is, okay, while that plays out, while the U.S. Copyright Office ever settles on something that contributes to a settled POV, while hopefully presidents of administrations don't just fire the person who just issued an opinion, which is, if anybody's following this, that's what was one of the last moments at the U.S. Copyright Office when they even issued like a pre-message, and probably knowing what was about to happen, and then they got fired the next day. So it's nothing but perhaps uncertainty or continued gray market settings on that side of it. But the point is we can move forward on how do I actually create original IP. And that seems to be where we're able to create practical.
It's very important to set where the market is right now. And I know that everyone now is like feeling they live in the bubble of like creating, publishing, and just kind of like making it all public. Actually, market is on the stage of building pipelines. So no one knows the volume, no one knows the scale. They just build like a significant pipeline that actually works for commercial application, for like a massive like productions and stuff like that. So those acquisition that happens is all experiential right now. Although it doesn't feel like it when you're inside of it, because we see like amazing results. But like when I talk to large studios, like all those big names right now, they are just finished it. They just kind of implemented the first steps and first thing, and they have no idea what to do with that. And this is very interesting kind of observation. The next thing is they check the content. Of course, they have to have a safe content, not just because they're good people or because they will have strikes. Unions will be against that. If you start to kind of like, that's what happened with the Sedans and flop with the IP scandal that happened. People are scared because the production level is incredible, and this is like, it looks really, really good. On the other side, it just takes everything it knows, and there's no filters, there's no safe guardrails. So now the only guardrails are good is not coming from model. They have to come from the independent player on the market that will guide everyone, not just sit-ins, but also all the other models. And it's all right to use all those models, because in the end of the day, I think that fair use will kind of like prevail.
Which is just a guess. Again,
it's a guess.
We'll wait for the attorneys to tell us.
I would just told my bets. And so far I was good at my bets, and specifically on the U.S. Copyright Office movements, when what they were doing, part 1, part 2 of their kind of comments around AI was basically, that's what we built for.
Cool. Well, tell me more about what we have here. So what is this distinction you're drawing?
So I'm trying to understand that like there's the biggest thing right now for copyrightability is to draw the line between tool and author. Who's the author and who's making the creative choices? And the tool is something that executes instructions. And that's this distinguished member. So now you kind of like, who you're playing for, and when everything that tool that basically executes instructions is not very much copyrightable. Everything that can be perceived in authorship and author involvement or significant human involvement in the process, that makes creative choices on top of the image, that makes things more copyrightable. So that's where you draw the line. So people were very much focused on what model they use, what pipeline they use, what prompt they use, but that's not that's a tool in input. Authorship is like, what's the creative concept? What are you actually trying to reach here? What the creative decisions you make to impact their output? Those are much more copyrightable. And there's different tricks. I will not reveal all of them, but there's just to focus on things that are authorship-wise.
Which, and intuitively, like just because something came out of a Panavision camera means nothing.
Yeah.
The fact that Christopher Nolan used that Panavision camera with his screenplay, and that's probably the analogy here, right?
Yeah. And we'll talk more on those like things. So the court doesn't care how good your prompt was. And there's cases of 600 prompts in one case. There were artists was trying to prove that it's his work with full control. He documented every prompt from the 600 and still lost this in the copyright case. And so we basically trying to understand where's the creative expressions, and prompts are not kind of qualify for the expression. part. So now we need to find what actually qualified and what counts, what doesn't. Direction and selection. Selections and directions are copyrightable actions, so you can like lean on that. Interactive creative choices and documented interactive creative choices. Arrangements of elements, composition. That's something that very much would be interested, and you can appeal to copyright officer, and you can actually build a case around that thing too. Documented authorship, like all kind of things. If you already have things or something that doesn't need and require authorship proof, like a sketch or like something that you created, and you have a proof of it, the timestamps and stuff like that. So what doesn't count? Raw AI output is not copyright. So when we see the like a clickbait articles like AI is not copyrightable, it is true. The raw outputs are not copyrightable. But with CopySight and copyright proof of creation, we can actually help you to do that. And we already have. We are one of the first companies that are copyrighted AI.
But intuitively, I just feel like, like just because something was shot on a camera, the camera harvesting moment isn't the moment of copyright. It's everything that came with it that then you and your team identify as copyrightable content, the screenplay, the actual final output. So that seems intuitive. It's just that we need to build the system to live with that, right?
It's a law. It's counterintuitive.
Right.
And style replication or style overall is not copyrightable action, but I do have my feeling that it will for AI. And I would push for that, because style means that you use someone's IP and train on that, mean that you know exactly what you're doing. And like Studio Ghibli scandal, I think with OpenAI was like one of those things that are have to be revised. And we talked to Studio Ghibli about that, and like we learned a lot about Japanese culture and how they hate courts and legal disputes.
Oh, that's interesting.
But it's a very interesting thing. Auto-generated variations, no. And indirect generation, so anything that you kind of like don't prove the like full control on, those things will not help you to copyright things. So what actually comes out of the model, like, to be honest, that's a legally harmless kind of thing, and it's basically public domain. It doesn't mean that you can't use it, it's just you can't protect it.
So talk about protection for someone that hasn't. A lot of people are just new to like, oh my God, I can make movies, I can make a sci-fi. I don't think they're fully processing what does it mean to then protect something they made.
Yeah.
What does that mean, for example?
It means that you are not protected from me taking this IP and creating a sequel and monetizing it.
Cease and desist.
Yeah. So you will not have cease and desist. You will not have any like kind of. You can't complain. Basically, that's it. You have to prove authorship. It's a tough process, and before that, it was kind of like organic. Like it's interesting that Copyright Office. Like, if you file a patent, they will check prior art. They will check like what happened before, like is it based on something and things like that. If you file an IP, they doesn't check anything, right. Because they were like, I don't know, it's art. Who right. cares? Who knows? So in this case, you kind of have like, if you file something and they registered it, and then someone comes and say, hey, it actually Mickey Mouse. I own Mickey Mouse, and then that's the dispute. And if they have enough proof, they will win. But it's on you. It's nobody checks it for you. So in this case, it's the system like CopySight that measures creativity and measures uniqueness is essential in the era of AI. It's kind of crazy how it's obvious, but also you can't move from that point. If you believe that there's theories that copyright will be democratized and like all the ownership will look democratized, and I believe that in theories, in theory it will. But now the whole business and like builds on that, and I think it will actually particular IPs will become cheaper, but the amount of IP will grow, and the structure of distribution of those IP will grow, meaning that there will be more money. And there will be more usage and more kind of like applications of different royalty distribution models and stuff like that. So we believe,
and that's kind of what we're speculating towards. And that's kind of the upside of this little bit of gray market chaos, is that because we're being challenged on what is the nature of copyright, what is the nature of copyright creation, it's perhaps along the way the same solution might be how we start to create better systems. And I think that's kind of where at some point I look at sort of these court disputes and I'm like, they're usually like really powerful interests that are looking out for themselves. I don't know how much this is looking out for the new creator. And that's where I think there's this organic friction that's happening within our community of people that are like suddenly a new type of empowered creator because there's a quality level they can create at. And in some ways, they're needing to assert ours is just as good as this other stuff that is big fancy lawyers protecting it.
But then nobody goes after creators right now. And there's a reason because you don't have money.
Right,
And
the money's with the model.
Yes, exactly. So everybody goes to the money. But the second you become popular and your thing become valuable, that's where you are in trouble. And I think that we will have more and more cases like that. And that's why I don't worry about this future. It will be clear a problem. So if you document your creative direction, you show iteration choices, you register early with us, with the blockchain or with the US Copyright Office or all together, and you use CopyScore before you ship just to kind of like check if their things are working, then you're good. You kind of build like an ethical and clean way to distribute and publish content generated in AI and like prove ownership. You don't need even register fully. You can have that just to have the documentation prepared. If anything happens, you just go and register it. So it will take some time.
So take us through your presentation. I also want us to get to see CopySight because some of us have played with it, and you've also made it available to everybody in Machine Cinema and everybody listening today for people to really start seeing these solutions.
Yeah, I wanted to announce it like officially and like kind of like we will give you away like, and you will publish this in newspaper and our like and on things. We'll give you like a promo code. You can use it. You can go and for free use for hundreds of checks our web tool and check things, drag and drop videos and images and check those things. Check your work, check your works of your competitors, check works of your colleagues. Make sure, and the reason for that is just like, guys, I want us to. The Wild West depends on us. Like if it's Wild West and nothing is like protected, and you can rip Marvel, but also anyone can rip your stuff. Right. If you don't want your stuff being ripped, start to act like it, and that's where you can actually build this whole infrastructure. So when it looks different or legally different is like not equal things. So sometimes you have elements of IPs and that's the biggest, I think, advantage of the patent we filed and the whole idea that we have that we measuring proximity between original work and derivative. We're not just finding Harry Potters of the world. We're finding like people that looks like it or like and measuring this in the number. And it means that you can do some derivative works and some derivative will be too dangerous. And again, we're not lawyers and we're not doing the legal decision here, but we inform you about like how dangerous your output. And then you can decide and or company can decide. And style isn't protected, but expression is. So focus on your expressions, and like like a kind of creative expression is something that is only visible for human eyes and is not visible to a court. So difference.
Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. So style, technically, if you created something and there's no character of or like some IP, but it's only used the stylistic element like a brush strokes or like color palettes and stuff like that.
So like Van Gogh style.
Yeah. It's not copyrightable. So if you created a Van Gogh painting that is not existing and you generated it, it's a public domain.
So no court's going to say we got you.
No. But expression is, and then you have a character, you have certain things that you can prove that is expression so that you can play on that. My belief that for AI, style have to be like in the future have to be like a copyrightable or like at least traceable, because for me it's a commercial use, and I think the whole dispute around like let's get
is that legal language expression? Is that something that a lawyer?
Expression is a creative expression is legal language.
That's exciting.
That's good to know. I give you like an example. Let's say Studio Ghibli like 80 years we're building like different IPs and styles and everything. So OpenAI trained on that, created the whole like style, called it Studio Ghibli style. People generated tons of content that actually bring evaluation of OpenAI up, and they have more subscriptions, and they gained from using someone's IP. And in this particular case, I think it's pretty logical that they have to like saddle something. And this is like a weird setup. So
we literally exploited it.
Yes,
literally gained subscribers.
Exactly. So this is like when you have this clear like traction and you can prove it, then this is something that should change, at least for the future. That's another interesting thing. Human are terrible in measuring creator distance, and there's proximity between originals and stuff like that. But it's exactly how it's done right now in the courts. They invited course expert, and they coming and say, hey, I'm an anime expert, and I say that I claim that it's a Naruto, and they was like, yeah, of course, that's that's the proof. So now AI can be used as the as an expert in the court, and you have to pass Rule 707 and just kind of like pass through certain certification and prove that it's built by experts on the market, and have a peer review, and then you kind of like, hey, here you are. We can be used as a court evidence to check and algorithmically measure how much your IP is there. And this is something we're really, really fighting for right now. Creative work becoming measurable. And it's very hard to understand, because before there was no reason to measure creative work. And there's all those mythos about like that it could be 20%. It could be like there's no percentage. There's nothing like that in the legal. It's all bullshit. In this case, it's just like, but with the AI, we have to put a number because it's a machine generated, and we have to put a number to it, like how much and what content it used and how much there's the proximity, and we need to have a number that everybody agrees on. And like Warner Brothers and Paramount and Netflix and Fox and everyone have to agree on the number, so we can distribute royalties, we can attribute, we can see how it works, and that is the copy score. That is what we are becoming right now. And so this is segment level similarity, credit score for Gen AI, we call it.
Isn't that interesting? Like, and that seems like a product of this environment. Like, like how would you measure the impressionist movement?
Yeah.
But it's a fascinating thing that like these are the solutions that are emerging because there are interests, because artists want to assert themselves.
And the tool is different. So before, I literally saying like 3 years ago, there was no need in it. Just because it's machine generated, I think that's changed the rules of the game, because now we need to kind of weight it and have an algorithm for that, and that's why we're obsessed with that part. You can't use, or you can't own, or you can't ensure what can't be measured, and we see it like insurance companies basically denying applications for insurances for studios and AI-generated pipelines, because they see the risk. They know they're not stupid. They see that every second generation contains MP infringements. And if people don't have a system that measures it, they either having a really high premiums, either they just don't even like tackle that. And that's why insurance companies are excited about what we do.
I mean, insurance is a whole other conversation, but these things are linked. And ultimately, insurance means safety. That means somebody's investment is being looked after, especially when these things aren't these $500 movies, and in fact, expensive movies that are being made with AI.
So clearly, like expression versus AI flop is like prompting, AI does it. Directing, you guide it, so it's hard to prove. Creating is you made it. So that's like a stages that you have to kind of like pass to ensure copyrightability and prove that it's an expression rather than AI kind of like flop. And I'll show you like a little demo. Like we have a really interesting examples, and I have recorded demo on the website. You can just go and check it out, or just book a demo with us, and we'll figure it out for your purposes. But overall, it looks like very very simple. You kind of like Studio Ghibli style, Albert Einstein, Marie Curie, Studio Ghibli's, and there's an image that should like this. No matches found. That's the safe environment that you have.
And that gets 100%.
Yeah,
that gets an A+ on the. You're off to the good races.
Yeah. So basically, we have two models right now, and one is actually working with videos as well, so we can check videos as well. And the second part is very interesting as well. It's a chain of creation, like basically providing human authorship strength. And so you have a sketch, you have like an AI-generated piece, you manipulate with this, all this stored in the case, and then you just generate it, and that you have a certification, and that can be used in court, it can be used in the U.S. Corporate Office and things like that. And it should be automatically not disrupting creative process, and that's where we call it proof of creation for our customers. So iterate, direct, document, and that will be the fastest rise, like very past the first results from generative AI model, and then you will be safe, and you'll be even safer with CopySight. But like I just want to make sure the Wild West time of IP infringements are over, or kind of comes to the end, and I think the IP ban basically of Seedance was a good beginning, and a good beginning for Hollywood. And the reaction was mainly because the quality is so good, and Hollywood is scared, but also they cannot miss this opportunity because they will not survive. But they need to go very gently to the creators and the unions and everyone, because it will not survive without AI. It will not survive another strike. So like you're in between two fires, and now I want to make sure there's a safe infrastructure for that. That's it. Yeah, then people are already in trouble. Style copying at scale. We saw the case. AI generated assets and brand campaigns. Android used to work on license deals. It's just a matter of time when you just kind of.
So this is the gray space.
Yeah,
and this is something that when either the creator at play, whether they're ideally using a tool like CopySight, but they're at least engaging with these issues and building their documentation and building their positioning.
We talk to people in studios and they cannot read of IP infringements. They basically generate something and they stuck with a character that reminds like Avatar or reminds like another thing, and they cannot remove it. Like it's hard to do it, and there's so many things that slipped in that anime, manga characters, like a rare IPs, actors. We just had this huge case. We thought that somebody checking us out. So there was a big client coming in, generated video, and we say, hey, there's 100% this super famous tier 1 actor. And I thought they'd be testing our model, but eerily, they regenerated it. There was not a test. So things like that will happen if you don't have like a protection.
So just because we just mentioned it and someone in the chat, and I'm going to make sure we get through a lot of the questions. I know people are starting to really lean in and appreciate everybody sticking with us. Is there such a thing as best practices for documentation? I mean, it's the wonkiest thing I think I've ever said out loud, but it's super important.
I don't think it exists right now. I think every pipeline building it internally, and we saw a lot of mistakes on that. So a lot of people say, hey, we will sign for proof of creation, but later I think we will build internally. Then they fail and they come to us. And that's the regular thing. We did like a 3 or 4 months research with like top lawyers to make sure that we have a legal framework to ensure copyrightability. And people are focusing on the wrong things. And I'm revealing a lot of things, but not all of them, to make sure, like we have a business. But overall, I think that's this thing that I showed you, like that's the document.
The scoring.
Not the scoring, but the focusing on expression, focusing on documenting creative steps from the human person.
So that piece, is it as simple as screen grabs that are eventually auditable?
It's logs. It's screen grabs, like sketches. Sketches are really essential. Briefs, the textual descriptions. There's few other things depending on your pipeline, and the biggest problem. That's why we love aggregators, because they have all of it already. We don't need like multiple integration. We need like one integration. So if you have logs, you can try to do it. But again, logs won't help you. You need
I suspect there will be a FileMaker Pro moment, or something like that is either being vibe coded during this call right now, or is sort of an obvious kind of relationship with all this sort of panoply of tools that literally just outputs the text of prompts. Again, if I'm an insurance company or I'm somebody that's suing somebody, eventually those things need to be audited. Like sure, there's proof, and then that's the connection, and that's the best efforts. That's the due diligence, right?
Then we need to prove that it's not manipulated. Right. There's somewhere stored, there's a ledger. Is it like some certification, some kind of protection and encryption? So there's so many things there to tackle. But yeah, we're in the beginning of journey, but I think we're like, I do it for a year and a half right now, and we progressed like crazy. The progress is quite significant. But
so documentation is a key thing. Someone in the chat, and I know we kind of just, unless you're intending to spend more time now, like let's just do it. Let's understand CopySight. Like if you can just walk us through it as a tool.
I just wanted to like put this on the table, the 5 things. So just because it's very related to creators. Personal projects, explore freely. We really want people to play around all their IPs and everything like that. And I think that's the beauty of those like dirty models and piratey models. Like do whatever you want. This is a creative expression. You can do it for non-commercial usage. It's a problem of the model right now to tackle that, why they have all those IPs. But I don't think we should stop creators. And I don't believe in prohibitions and like restrictions. I do think that we need to allow people to use everyone's IP, but we need to attribute and pay for it. And that's the mission of CopySight right now. Client work, rules apply. Brand campaigns, rules apply. Film and production, rules apply. Anything with money involved, any commercial use, rules apply. And just to make sure, like, we are not trying to restrict anything. We're actually trying to create more freedom. But as a business who hired you, you kind of want to, follow along the compliance and making sure it's safe. Before, on your research, on your generator model, like when you just playing and creating art, do that, please. Still is an art, and still art is a part of the creative process. But then when you check the outputs in the end, making sure it's safe, that's where you're doing this. Check, own, protect. So that's I will maybe go to CopySight again here, just to kind of making understand. So we kind of like this 3-pillar governance. First pillar is like we start in the creative process and we start to check everything massively. Like OpenArt, there's like thousands of checks. There's big companies want to make sure it's all of those things are checked because they want to create an insurance policy, or they want to make sure that they are not infringing. We want to make this kind of partnership with Cedence as well to make sure, even if they're reselling it to studios and they're selling to aggregators. So how they make sure that those are not doing some IP infringement. So we'll pair it. So you have a Cedence together with CopySight. The checks can get you more kind of safe commercial outputs, even in the very disputed model right now. Yep. So those pairing is something that we really believe in. So it's not that you can like licensed models are great and it's good idea, but it's a very specific and niche scenario. Most of the creators are demanding better quality, and I think the latest Adobe launching third-party models showing that Firefly was not sufficient for creators. They need to
and Runway too.
Yeah, exactly. So now just focus on outputs. Do whatever you want. Use whatever pipeline you need. Check those things with a third-party vendor. CopySight is this third-party vendor, and it doesn't matter if you build your own, little scoring there. The only matters that there is a scoring that Warner Brothers is using, like Agbo is using, or like for OpenArt is using. Those are matters for industry right now, just to make a trustworthy algorithm to check content. That's the first thing. And we have like a cheaper versions and CopyScore certificate that will embed identification and insurance into this. Or we have like a quick run for tons of content for cheap.
Okay, so, I'm just pausing really quickly. Chaz, are we able to screen share because people want to see him show the CopySight in action?
I'll play it a few times just to kind of make sure. And that's the first step. The second step that we just mentioned is like, okay, proof of creation, how we ensure that everything we checked and it's greenlit. You saw that it was like greenlit and matched. Okay, no matches found. Great, I have this image, I created it, but now I have to own it and I have to prove it. So now we're proving it. So we have a proof. Okay, we created a proof. We are confident in the proof of creation. Next step, you want to distribute it. And when you distribute it, you want to trace it back. Let's say you're an AI-generated campaign that were published and used by other comments or other third parties. So now you have either invisible watermark, C2PA, some kind of a resilient protection on top of it. That's something we're also doing and providing. So now we have all the governance in embedded. And if you have this pipeline with us, you kind of like safe for Gen AI.
So on an entry level, it's as simple as upload your image you want to work with, /video, score received.
Yeah.
And if you get a bad score, then it's on you to keep, sort of wasting your time using this to exploit. Yeah. But let's say you get a good score, then there's this layer of completing the chain of creation steps. And this is where there's a bit of a certification layer that eventually wants to include things like C2PA as a full narrative. And again, at some point, this is the industry standard that everybody needs to adapt. It's the layer that the consumer needs to appreciate and have their own sort of value judgment on why this is better than something that doesn't have it.
I'll run like it's a live demo right now just to explain how this thing works. So you have two models, V1 and V2. And in V2, you can upload like a short videos and images. In V1, you can do the other things. And you also have like a confidence and face detection confidence. And if you will upload videos, you can also like how many frames you want to check. And it will give you like a scoring of like all cast of Harry Potter, really ripped, really healthy. But overall, you will have like API keys, dashboards, and API documentation here. And we even have Comfy UI kind of key that you can use to implement this thing. It will be launched a little bit later, but overall, it's something we're.
So this is an example of a fantastic meme.
Yeah.
And somebody should feel very proud of themselves if they got a lot of likes on the internet. But
Yeah.
this will not be useful when
No.
they go to a distributor
Yeah.
to say, here's a usable image in my movie, right?
I mean, like, this is AI generated illustration for one of the customers, and like, okay, you see Roblox, you see some like character there, but I was surprised to see Hermes Birkin bag. There's no logo on the bag. It recognized Birkin bag just by having like design elements there. And we have different things like parodies or like AI generated like David Hockney painting or other things. You can see those things, and actually it's impressively interesting how it tracks actor, and if he wears a black tie, it will refer to a character the actor plays. And there's a lot of reasoning and a lot of like segment-based vector embedding. So we like basically looking at this. So you have David Hockney as a celebrity and a famous person, like, and we have David Hockney art style identified on that thing. So it's it's an interesting tool to play this. I don't want to like see that it's a perfect thing right now, but we invite creators to add their IPs to us so we can actually protect this thing, you know. And if you will, we will creating like a gate for creators to add IPs. We'll check them, of course. We'll demand some certain like mandatory for certain like acceptance of the IPs. But then if you want, or like all those studios, when they generate, they see something that is your IP trained online. We will add this to the data set, so they will see that it's yours, and they will pay you. So if you want to get paid in the future, please add IPs to our platform. Like, just share it with us. We will launch it separately. But this is like, it's Fox Television General Counsel asked us to add this picture.
Oh, wow.
And basically, I would not check this thing, but it's basically Hope poster by Shepard Fairey and Donald Trump. Like, it recognized parodies, basically. And what you should see most of the time, like when you create some original work, you should be like, okay, there's no matches found. I'm good.
So that's a moment of, okay, and you want to sort of, as a creator, and obviously tools like OpenArt have been sort of, you know, smartly adding this to their toolkit, that you're down the road, you're in your flow state, you're very happily a generative AI artist. You know, these are the sort of the checkpoints you start to even along the way to documenting everything, along the way to preparing yourself for a professional delivery. You build in a checkpoint that, like, all right, before I get too excited about this character or this world, I'm locking in something that is okay. Checkpoint received. One of
our clients said, like, before you got in love. When you create a character, you got in love. Before you got in love, please check it. And then the final output would be also good to check, because there's artifacts on the costumes and like on paintings and stuff like that. It could be like, you know, somewhere in the background. Some of the, like, we have a wishes tester, one of the actually part of your community, David. He found like the rarest like 70s anime, like, and finding that it's discovered that, and he finds something that we don't know, and we add this, and it's such a great collaboration. And I really want and encourage everyone, please send us cases, send us things, and internally that you figured out, good and bad. It's still not perfect. We don't have there's like a Chinese influencers that we have no database, or kids characters from like preschool YouTube videos and stuff like that, because they all kind of looks the same. So there's a lot of things that we can be like, you know, found, but it's the best what we saw on the market right now.
So I know that we lost a little bit of time listening to Jeopardy music earlier. I'm also mindful that some people came in for 10 to 11, but I think we have time here, and we're going to stick around here probably for at least another 30 minutes. But I want to make sure we complete sort of understanding CopySight. I know that we also want to speculate a little bit about like what are the building blocks that we're creating here, and why should people get excited about not just this as like a Band-Aid to old systems? How are we possibly in the works of something that's more valuable to a more modern creator economy? But let's get there. And I also see tons of questions that I know we want to answer. Somebody really wants us to talk about Richard Prince. Richard Prince, is that a name drop that you're familiar with? Somebody's asking about his artwork. In which case, I might tell this person. Sorry, we don't.
I don't want to embarrass myself. Oh yeah, of course.
So apologies, Ultra Chroma. In spite of your zeal, we have nothing to say about Richard Prince today, but we can research it.
Yeah.
But let's continue. I want to make sure we hit those points today.
So what the
I don't know if there's more to your presentation or more to understanding CopySight.
Just a little thing. Like I think everybody just will enjoy there's a lot of like childhood trauma thing that happened. There's like different AI generated fixing childhood trauma or trauma of like bad ending of the season of Game of Thrones, AI generated. And of course, it's all infringements, clearly.
Yeah.
So, and now our tool can actually detect, like, Game of Thrones, King's Landing, like Targaryens, and kind of frame by frame work and identify those things. Kind of like impressive. Just the last thing I wanted to show on that side. And I think we can switch their screen sharing here and just talk.
Okay, cool. I mean, I want to just hear a little bit because this is what's exciting. Look, you have a company and you have a solution and you're coming in as a non-attorney, but like a creator-focused solution. And I think in a lot of ways, whether you're inviting people to create these checkpoints in their process. You're inviting people to start really working with their attorneys with this as a solution. We're probably all learning collectively, as I'm sure even your company then adapts. But there is a vision you have of how this is moving into, we're speculating on a better future. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I would start with the example. That's a quite scary example, and people just posting right now about this. And it's Stack Overflow example. Stack Overflow is the platform that people sharing like engineering solutions and asking other engineers how they can solve it. That's a major library to train like every code-based kind of model. And the traffic on this website down 70 or 80%, like crazy, right after the ChatGPT launched Codex and all those like models start to provide code. So people stop asking other engineers and they're asking ChatGPT or Anthropic. And that, what it means that next thing with the next language will be problematic. And it might not be as problematic for code, but for images, it's definitely a big problem. So we anticipate basically a fall of content production that will encourage training of next generations of VLMs. And we know that we have a synthetic data degradation impact for next generation of models. So we need to incentivize creators to create things manually and adding it to this like a world library of things. And there's no reason for that. I'm a professionally trained artist, and someone would tell me like not that I don't need to learn plastic anatomy or like all this composition thing that I was doing. Yeah, fine, I can generate anything, still reveal all my creative thoughts. But then someone needs to do new stuff. Someone needs to be incentivized for that. So that's why to create a very clear platform where people can value their IPs, can distribute it, can track and trace it, and if someone somewhere commercially use their IP, they have to get paid. They get to incentivize. Imagine the world where, again, exactly the same, like those laid off artists from Disney sitting at home, chilling, and then new Marvel movie comes out, and they got paid for creating the style, creating their universe, creating their usage of their generative assets that they created based on their style and on their creative artwork. They will get paid. That's the future we're building in. That's why I'm so obsessively resisting the scoring and making this an industry standard. That's why we are working on this traceability and protection before the next step we know from Wild West will get, and the enforcement will come along. They're not yet there, but they will come.
It's interesting because I'm trying to, I almost want to imagine a couple metaphors because it's a big idea what you're saying.
Yeah.
In some ways, why hasn't this existed before? And it's because maybe it's really, resource intensive for someone to protect themselves in court.
Oh, yeah.
And you almost need to have this whole setup that usually at the end of the day, the studios have that type of machinery. But the notion of there being a simple tool that at currently just the stage of giving you a score can also start tracking and tracing, like you're saying. I think that's the verbs I heard you say that are a big deal.
Yes, and I think that's a reverse engineered Spotify kind of like strategy. And we don't want to have a Spotify strategy again, because what happened is that they built it solidly, and then NAL created the whole infrastructure, and majors were looking at them but believing that they can copycat it really quick. And then they tried and they failed, and then they went to the legal dispute for 5-7 years, I'm not sure. And in the end, they split the pie, and then majors got the piece, Spotify got the piece, and creators are left. aside, and I don't want this to repeat, and I don't think that's a good strategy. I want to provide value right now to studios, come back to them and explain how important that creators will contribute to the system, and pay them.
So if I'm taking your what if of like, so we're taking this very real, and we know some people in our community that were part of the Disney layoffs. Here's this very real scenario. And let's even say it's not just people in different departments that don't touch the art. It's a lot of people that touch the art.
Yes.
So we're almost suggesting, what if there's a better world for those employment agreements? That even as those people get hired, they are in a easily presentable scenario that like not only, unless they're just in work for hire deals, and a lot of people are, but let's say there's a better studio system that sort of recognizes that just because somebody got paid some benefits to work for me, maybe I want to incentivize them further. Maybe I want to attract better talent, because part of my deals is that we have this really easy to use technology that traces that they created Iron Man. In the way that became popular, and it's a big deal. And even though we own the IP of Iron Man, there's all these Stan Lee comic books that ultimately, there's also these like incremental values that we can almost have a system that really does work and doesn't require months in court to sort of defend and protect.
Exactly. I don't believe I will build those relationship thing. It's up to studios, but I think that's the place and infrastructure for that should exist. And that's, I build towards that. And then you have companies like or Box.com that owns the all metadata, like a memory of every studio right now. If that will be embedded there, and then we can enrich our data with that, so we can actually make those things happen.
I think I think that there's a few different waves of technology. A lot of blockchain folks, even in our community, that have been imagining this for a while. Like, is there a more trackable, traceable, metadata-based, all these like wonky words that actually mean perhaps better and more rewarding? And then like the ultimate metaphor that I often think about is like, I think about like the blues, like there's a music movement. And you think about all these people, that mostly were in the South that, and there's a lot of things to even observe about how they were able to leverage themselves. But blues was just shared, and everybody like inspired people, like borrowed each other's riffs, and they made music all day long. And arguably that gave birth to rock and roll and all kinds of other things. So in some ways, the decentralized creative process has a history. There are also a bunch of people that got screwed over. There's a bunch of other people that maybe wouldn't have been nice if there was a trackable, traceable tool that, on the one hand, trace that I created that first blues riff, but maybe still invited other people to borrow it and use it. It's just that we had a more trackable, traceable system that can allow amazing things like music movements to happen and not get bogged down by like, you can't do this in nanny state.
You have to have a choice.
Right.
So if you want to give it away for everyone to use, it's up to you. Just click a checkbox on that. Or you want to earn from that for something more valuable and important for you, you have to have a choice. Now we don't have a choice. And the whole distribution of that, I do believe that people have to do this. It should be a freedom. Should be people. I believe that like an independent Japanese animation studio have to create the next big Spider-Man movie. But instead of like paying millions of dollars for that, they have to kind of like get some sort of like automated derivative art permission, and they can do like a different Spider-Man, a derivative from that universe, and actually pay their contribution, but it should not be like as high. It should democratize and open up a world of IPs, but then still kind of get paid and still kind of get monetized and things like that. And again, we're far away from figuring out the math. Far away.
But we're at least building the Legos to sort of understand the math and then, eventually design system. I guess that's what I mostly... there's so much. I don't worry about creativity. If anything, we're trying to like make sense of how do people build careers with it again? Because in some ways the old systems suck and are not working that well. But we also have this wildly volatile and insane new gasoline in the tank that it's not that it needs to be restrained. It just needs to be understood and maybe optimized. And hopefully we build something better. And I love people thinking this way. I'm going to do my best to get through Q&A here. I know that people have been asking for the last hour. If something's really on your mind, can you please rebump it, and I'm going to kind of working backwards. Let me pick some. Just to address the Richard Prince and Ultra Chroma, I appreciate how passionate. As I understand it, Richard Prince is a photographer who photographs other people's photographs. So simply put,
cool, yeah. Okay.
So there's no copyright.
No, it's a problem. Yeah, of course. And there's other artists who are using like very famous IPs, but for art purposes, they somehow getting around it for their art things, and people, because let's say you use someone and you popularize it, and actually they benefit it, so they not prosecute them. And there's a really interesting where we were talking to one startup, and they have a huge scandals in IP. They were doing refacing basically, and they went to the major. Major said, "Yeah, we love this like little viral video that you created." They went. It was with Justin Bieber. They went to Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber, it's so fun. Go for it. And then every company, like a large company, has this little Cerber dogs of lawyers who are looking for those things, and they hire them, and then separately they work separately. So, and they still got sued by the same company that allowed them to do it, because someone's were like just hired and they're paid for finding those things, and even though everybody was like okay with those things, so in those cases with art, most of the people are just getting around that for the artist and for popularity.
I mean, my gut, and again, neither of us are attorneys, but we're kind of speculating with you.
Yeah.
And someday we're going to be able to get people back up on stage and we can hear from you if we're not capturing the spirit of what you're saying, Ultra Chroma. But yeah, I mean, there's a long history of artists, call it reappropriating or interpreting. Andy Warhol certainly made a few bucks off of it.
I don't want to even tackle that. I actually don't want to touch this, because the court system and all the system is already know how to tackle for 100 years.
That's right.
IP is 200 years old, so we know like how people are kind of trying to do this thing. I worry about AI and machine-generated IPs, and that is where we need to have a system. For people, it's already solved. Like whatever court decide, like it's for AI, it's not solved, and that's why I think it's particular makes me interested.
Cool. A couple practical questions about CopySight from Barney. Does it do audio?
Specifically not.
Not yet.
We will do voices. I think we will ignore music as much as possible. Litigation and kind of work with music and legal part, not technical, but legal part of the music part. The kind of like infringements is insane. It's very complex, and there's a couple of competitors are like tackling this. I don't. The majors will not allow us to do a big thing there. So I want to focus on something that I can actually grow to a billion-dollar company. Yeah.
Is CopySight useful if your work is already publicly released?
Interesting question. You can, just for your information, you can check it if something already happened, and be prepared. The other thing, we do some experiential kind of reverse engineered cases. So let's say you publicly released and you're not sure you own it. We have two cases right now with proof of creation that we, instead of collecting the data, we asking clients to prepare a case. We providing you a questionnaire. You have to fill it with everything that, and we will kind of backdate the engineering part, and we will check if it's AI, not AI. We have some measures to protect it, and then we will help you to copyright it, even if it's already published.
Cool. So I mean, probably better to use it in its intended
sequencing. Yeah, of course. It's a one-time thing. It's not a business model. It's more we testing grounds with the U.S. Corporate Office. So we looking at the cases that are already up and running. But it's not productized. It's literally helping you guys to find the right way to copyright it. For future, we will ask you to sign with a product and actually embed it.
Cool. Someone's asking, I think you addressed this before, and maybe we're in and out, the idea of C2PA and how widely adopted. In some ways, you seem to have an instinct that it's on its way to being more further shipped.
Yeah, and it's further. It's a great idea. Everybody's using it as a good actor's idea, like a thing. But what I see right now is a little kind of push to make it a compliance for AI generated content, and that's where I'm business-wise I'm very interested in. So yeah, we will we'll provide certification for our customers.
Cool. Just talking about certificate, I don't want to put you on the spot. Are you familiar with Tap Now? You interact with that tool?
No.
So I'm a lot of my Chinese students are using it. It's kind of like their alternative to Weavy.
Okay.
And actually, we can move on, but they have a verification pull down, which is kind of interesting. It might be worth checking out to see where it aligns with what you're doing with OpenArt. If anybody's used Tap Now, I'm curious if you have feedback on it. But there's a pull down that as I understand it, it's interacting with that face feature issue in CDance. That it's basically almost giving you some sense of proceed. This is okay. But I'd be curious. I know you don't have an answer for it, so I'm going to move on.
No, okay.
The notion of, is there a way to start building a tool that lets people collaborate while tracking and measuring each other's? Like, is there a collaborative version of this?
Oh, wow. Interesting question. That's exactly why I want to share my tool for people, just to kind of bring those ideas up. It should be a version of collaboration. And also, I would say, we are API kind of like driven company. So you can do whatever you want. So if you want to have a collaboration, we'll provide you an API key and you can build this, the collaboration part on your side if you're like a big studio or you have an engineer power. If not, that will be an interesting next step. There is certain way to, let's say we work with a studio with a big library of IPs, we can actually have like contribution and measurements there as a next step. Yeah, for now it's more generic, guys. Like, yeah, it was just, we know who created, who registered as a copyright owner or who is a right owner on this part, and there will be more data, more details in the future.
It's interesting. Someone else in the chat is, I mean, if you imagine like the arenas that we're all seeing how video models perform, is there an arena for which models are most likely to infringe?
Oh yeah, it's a benchmark. Actually, NVIDIA does that internally, and some other companies are kind of like looking for more safe environments. And yes, of course, like everyone is infringing, but Kling will infringe much more, and Cedance will infringe right now.
But is that its own chart that anybody wants to see?
Yeah, though nobody will. But it should, somebody like a third party like us can do the benchmark and basically say, hey, we catch like 3 times more infringements on those.
It sounds like the community's asking for it.
Yeah,
if you want feedback today.
Yeah, well, I will give you like names of the villains,
or the people that are liberal with their interpretations, but harder to exploit your outputs from. If we're getting technical.
There's definitely certain filters on some more like legit models, and there's absolute absence on some of the models. And you can't say, there are complex pipelines people using from 5 to 12 models in commercial pipelines, meaning then it doesn't matter. If one is cleaner, then another will be problematic. So it's just the outputs is what matters.
I just feel like intuitively that's there's so much work, and I guess we should do this work to understand how the clay and the bricks are made, but there's just something about at the end of the day, like you're going to exploit the final outcome, and how do we, there just seems to be an intuitive checkpoint, but let the lawyers tell us what's the right thing to do. Laura's asking about this chain of creation kind of concept. So is are you purporting in terms of where CopySight sits in all this, that it's trying to basically create a step towards chain of creation, or is that between you and your attorney to build that, or how does that? How should somebody take that away?
It's automatical document that generate, and you pay for it one time, and you have subscription to pay just to us to collect this data, and then you pay one time, and you have almost prepared a case for US Petrov. We are not submitting it. US Petrov doesn't have an API access, and so we basically giving you like a document that you can actually share. The thing is that there's everything I told you there's today is embedded there, but there's a secret sauce on top of it that is really hard to replicate, and that's why we have successful cases right now.
Got it. Very cool. I mean, it's just like there's so much innovation going on in this space for reasons we get excited about every day in our chat. But we're excited to have you here today because you've literally zoomed in on this thing that, I don't know if it's less sexy, but it's not the first thing people are thinking about, but it's eventually the thing that they're thinking about, and it's important.
I mean, everything is before your stuff got ripped. And I will repeat myself here. It's just like, if you don't want your stuff to get ripped, just don't rip other stuff. Just start to build this hygiene. This is a hygiene. This is a new hygiene for using AI. Just make sure you're like in the right spot. And again, if it's your personal project, do whatever you want.
So in terms of hygiene, I mean, one thing I've seen some studios do is they even as a policy create that there has to be hand-drawn artwork at step 1 of whatever you're doing, even if it's like a scribble. But these are the types of choices that are very practical, right? They're just very literal as part of that sort of like screen grab.
If it helps to, I can like double down on that. It really helps you to own this stuff. So yes, we also ask our customers to provide those things. So I would encourage that part. it's not everything you need, but it's important step. So yeah, there's a hygiene levels, and everybody understands that conceptually, but then you want to make sure there's like an industry standard for that. There's like a kind of like common knowledge that is spreaded, and common values that's coming from that, and the values of the community. That's why I really love your community. There's a value shared. Like we have like almost like, I don't know, 40 or 50% of our clients are coming from this community, and so it's very interesting, and I believe that through this community together we will go from the stage of like, oh, I generate this, to, oh, I can actually own it and I can actually protect it. So we going through Wild West to something very civil and respectful.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's so glad to have you here today, and thank you for bearing with us as we've built in public a little bit today. I mean, if anybody has any few more questions, we're right at time, and I know some people dropped off right at the hour, but like it's just I think it's exciting to see this sort of this intersection of practical solutions, creative solutions, high stakes environments too, by the way. Like, these are studios that sometimes could make a major impact on how many people start getting hired because these things get resolved, and how many people start actually perhaps participating in these better employment agreements that I think you're thinking about. And I almost think that's the noisiest thing I've heard coming out of this conversation today is like, what if we're actually creating the types of building blocks that if they even existed in the first place, maybe we could have advocated for ourselves even better.
Yes.
Like so many people, and I come from the unscripted world, we just assume everything's work for hire. Everything, because how would you even trace it? How would you actually make the case for it?
Disputes about AI is talking about it, like how you charge. It's the system changed, and Netflix disrupted it, but then there's other changes coming in, and we can become one of those changes. Like we're like creators are just lame in litigations and in arguments, and they're not like prepared for legal disputes, and we should just like work on that. This is like our like homework. Right now, we have about 60 precedental cases of IP infringements, like large ones, like, like the against the big models. And a lot of them were like lost, like Meta won a lot of fair use thing just because the cases were poor. They were not like prepared enough. The first cases of IP infringements or just like not having copyright ability on the artwork was lost just because the case was weak. And I encourage people to be weaponized. Like creators, we be weaponized with the scorings, with the proof of creation, with things like I want to help this thing to be more protected and more precedents, more like one of your members sent us like a really big case for famous people, for famous AI creator who using someone's IP, knowingly or not unknowingly, I don't know, but we have like new systems saying 85% of this famous gaming IP, and it's like what we do. And the self-moderation, like I don't want us to be like a policing tool, but I want us to be aware to that we are bringing hygiene to this new world, and it's up to us. We're waiting for some regulations. We're waiting for someone to come in and like solve it for us. But we are here, creators. We are here. We're doing this work, and this starts from us.
Last question, and I know that there's more questions. People should reach out to you on LinkedIn, or obviously you're in the community, so they can just ping you inside of WhatsApp.
So I would ask that today or tomorrow we can make a post with the code and accesses to our tool, and invite everyone to try it and send it. Yeah, you can also come to LinkedIn on the website. You can book some time and book some demos. Just come say hello.
Amazing. What is the dumbest thing people don't understand about this whole subject area of copyright? Like, what is like you can't believe you're still re-explaining yourself sometimes?
That the whole thing, like the whole thing. I was like pitching this for like a year, and a lot of people like, where there's no market, and I was like, what are you talking about? It's like it's $1 trillion market. It's just, what are you talking about? Like, it's just such a big thing to have a protect. And then when people see lawsuits, and then people see that how citizens are losing their like credits basically on the trust from Hollywood, then they say, then everybody came back. Everybody. I had like inbound 79 companies inbound. I don't have marketing right now, so it's just the first marketing effort.
I love that just scandal is like the best marketing tool.
Yeah, and just wait for somebody to fail. I'm sorry, to kind of like get the attention to it. So the main thing is it's important. It's a huge market, and I want to be part of it.
We're going to go in a couple minutes, but there's just two things that people are, it's sort of similar to that. There's this question of, does this tool very specifically, can it help people being hurt by fake news, like real journalists that are being deep faked? Did this go down that road?
So we have a partner for that. We will announce those partnership very soon. It will identify AI deepfakes. So
I mean, and that's the slippery slope, is that this, once you're starting to build like a system to understand outputs and where they're coming from, it does have so many other applications, right?
So if there's no C2PA, again, if you know metadata and you have this image, and we need to look at the artifacts and on the image to make sure it's like legit or not legit. And there's so many layers to that. There's like you actually introduced me to a couple of companies that do the chipping and like hardware solutions, how to track where the picture comes from. But on the essential level, it's not yet perfect of anyone that I saw on the market. The technology overall is pretty weak right now, but this is essential hygiene as well. And many studios asking because they don't trust their own vendors to like, oh, it's AI generated or not. We don't know, like how you say. So now there still will be also a requirement for an inception.
There's so many more questions. I think people should feel free to reach out to you. Yeah. Obviously, we are offering everybody access to the tool for the movies and videos and creations that they're making. And I think open dialogue. I mean, this is the Explorers Club. This is the Robodojo energy of like, we're trying to figure this out together. Yeah. And I think this type of feedback, these types of questions really benefit the way you guys are approaching opportunities at CopySight.
Can I say a code
Please.
now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just like, so go on a CopySight.AI. Go to creators tier, and there's like a code, like the input the code, and you can put partner 26, and that's it. And you're
all caps.
All caps.
All caps. Partner 26, which I'm guessing is the year that we're in.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the patience with everybody today. We are also building in public a bit, but hopefully everybody thought this looked better. I got some commentary on the lighting. It's a little warm. Maybe next time we'll get a little more whites on the white balance. But we like the warm.
Yeah, it was like our creative decision.
We're in Venice.
It's an expression, I would say. It was a creative
This is an expression. Here it is.
We choose this lighting.
Okay, we copyrighted this today.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the camera. Thanks everybody for being here. There's more of these to come. Please reach out to Tommy on his LinkedIn and obviously in the community if you're in the WhatsApp. Really, really cool to understand this better. I always feel like this is such an open dialogue to figure this out, and I love the energy of speculating on a better future, which I think is
we have to do it, because if we are not doing it, then the speculation will be on others, in other hands, and like that's how you formate this future, the better future.
Awesome. Well, really excited that people like you are out there helping all of us figure this out. Thanks everybody. Reach out for more feedback as always, please, on these, and we will hopefully see you on the next one. We've got one coming up with Flick actually, which they have agentic filmmaking, which is all kinds of questions for the copyright world. But thank you so much, and we will hopefully see you guys on Gen Talks and our next Robodojo. Thank you everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye.